Good morning, guys. Welcome to this Thursday, March 6th. And we got a bunch of stuff going on here on the downside. It looks to me like we got some weakness going on here in the morning. And overnight, not looking pretty for sure. Not exactly sure what happened with that, but as you can see, we had a pretty spectacular little rally going into yesterday. We are holding on to these gains at 58.40s. And most of the overnight London session kicks in, and there you go, bound right back down again. So I don't have a headline really to lean on, so that's market volatility, I guess. But you can see here, this range here is starting to form. We'll see if they can hold this lower support area, the 57.40 down to that, the 30s up to the 40s. If that comes out, bets are off. It could be a lot worse. So we'll see if this is going to be more heartburn coming our way or not. So we're definitely on the lower end of the range to get the day started. We are still though in the range. We haven't quite broken out of it. Now the news for this morning, we have we got the job cut report. That's big, 170,000, where the prior was 49, so 170. So it's and most likely government workers been counting in that number. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. We also at 8:30 we get the bulk of the news: international trade, jobless claims, productivity. I think jobless claims are one to watch. I think that number is going to see that pop up a bit, especially now when they're laying off government workers by the thousands. So that would be not necessarily. I'm not too worried about that in terms of the economy having an issue. Because government workers, I mean, they're cutting fat, so I'm not sure that the productivity is going to probably go up in the government after then they get rid of a bunch of that bloat. Anyway, so I would expect that number to come up a bit. And the interesting part is if they can keep track of who they are and where they came from. But some bulk of the news coming out at 8:30. 10 o'clock we get wholesale inventories. Nat gas report at 10:30. So not a crazy amount of news, but then of course on Friday we get employment situation and a ton of Fed speakers, like 6 Fed speakers lined up, including Powell. So that's going to be interesting on Friday. But for today, more bulk of the news at 8:30. Wholesale inventories at 10. That's about it. So the way this looks to me, I'm going to start off range bound. I'm going to keep my bias to the downside. This is a couple of days now. We had nice bargain hunt rallies closing at the top end of the range. Since then, though, every day we've been just seeing them knocking it down again in the day session, and that volatility continuing. So I'm not going to be expecting anything less. It's going to probably keep going like this. The one I'm watching right now is that lower edge at the 57.30 up to the 45s. And if that lower edge comes out, bets are off. I mean, at that point, I think we can head a lot lower. And if I move this bigger, you can see that comes out. The next levels are going to be down here at the 56.90s, and then we have support at 56.60s. So we are already in a, 400 point pullbacks, not quite 10% on the ES, but so they can certainly run it a little bit lower. We will see. I mean, at one point here, I think the bargain hunting is going to start beginning. As some of these stocks really getting hammered are some of the big techs and so on and so forth, and those price levels are pretty attractive, and get in on those stocks. So anyway, looking at this, looking to get short against early strength for rotations down. See if you can retest these lows. I would say if they can't really take out the lows, the range bound trading is kind of where we are, even if the range is pretty darn wide, right? So we have this upper area of resistance, the 58.60 to 80s. That's this upper area. 50, let's see, there. So you see this area right there, this resistance. They probe that a little bit lower here. You have resistance. So this area, and you see how they reverse retesting this a couple of times now at 58.70 to 80. Can't quite make it happen. And then back down again. So We'll see. And of course, support's holding as well in the 35 or the 45s down to the 30s. And so I would be looking at buying against that support there. A little bit of caution, but that would be the better long setups coming would be coming from. But at this point, the range is so wide. It's there is plenty of room for short trades on the way down, and there's plenty of room for long trades on the way back up, even if you're just trading in that range. So to get started, given the overnight, I'm going to look for lower prices. If I look to get short against some early strength. At this point, against the 5800s, that's pretty much what I got. There could be something here in the middle at 5790. You see that little mode from the prior day, but it traded through it already. I think I had an edge. I can put it back. Yes, since I mentioned it. Yes, it caught my eye. So right there, you see that mode. If I just do this in a G period, so that could be a potential short to try to get. I wouldn't be. It could be a short. I mean, I wouldn't be super aggressive on it, but it's something for reference at least. So looking for shorts against that 5790 to 5800s for rotations back down. If they trade above the 5800, I'm taking off that short bias and just going back range bound and watching for potential rotations back up again or potential moves down. But just to get started, given this dynamic, I'm looking for a retest of the lows, potentially lower. So that's kind of the starting point. But as I emphasized, it's if they start running this lower, as they come down here to the to support at 75, 60, 65s, 55s down to the 45s, looking for buying opportunities. And the better ones probably around the 50, 55s and the 45s. The last one would be here at the 35s, maybe even down to 25s, but it's you can see how the volume tapers off here, and that's where your better support is now. They start knocking that out, bets are off, and we can start to head a lot lower. So we'll see how this whole day shakes out. When it looks like this in the morning, the overnight is weak. You had to be a little bit cautious about the long side, at least to get started. So even if you're looking for long setups against support on the way down, let's do that with a bit of caution. I think we have one day right now which hasn't extended to the downside, and that was yesterday. Right now we have the second day starting where we don't have we might not do that. So this could be the start of a distribution forming. And we just have to see if they're going to extend to the downside today. All right. And on the way up, looking for shorts against resistance. So if they start trading this higher, looking for shorts against the 5810s, 5830s, 5840s, 50s, 65s, and the 75 to 80s here for rotations back down. So here's where they run into resistance when they come up to the 5850s, 65 and the 80s, 75 to 80s here. That's when they run into pretty good resistance. And but the interesting part is a couple of days now we ended up on the upper end of this. Looked pretty strong, and then just to kind of be kind of back off in the overnight. So we'll see. I mean, feels like there's some buying going on, but it's not quite sticking. Let me put it that way. All right, so that's what we're looking at to get started. So looking for early weakness to retest these lows, trying to get short against the early strength if you see it, but not more aggressively than that 5800 level. So if they start trading above that, I'm taking off that, trying to get short against early strength. So, and then going back more range bound in my trading on this thing. And as I said, with this kind of a range, there's certain if they get a little rally, there's certainly directional trades going back and forth with this kind of range. It's not like you're sitting in a tight range. This is a pretty freaking wide range you're trading in. So you can certainly look for directional moves. Just be a little bit cautious about it. You saw it. I tried to trade yesterday on the Nasdaq, and that's the issue right now with the volatility is you just get into much bigger trades than you want because of the volatility. And if you're wrong, it's just kind of run you over. So I started to be a little bit cautious about it. So that's the ES to get started. Looking at the bonds and the Nasdaq. So the bond market, they were down here yesterday to the downside. And now they're heading back up again. It looks like they were down here in this low volume area, almost down to the 116.16s, almost down there. and now they're backing off again. So looking at my capital, where's my oh, there it is. So the on the bond market, we were way up here at 119s. They backed off from there. So flight to safety, that was a flight to safety panicky thing. And now they're backing off a bit. I guess the bond market is not that concerned about it. And we're almost done here to that lower attractor at the 116.08. So we're right in that low volume area right now. I would start off range bound. I would look for potentially lower prices on the bonds if they can run it down to that 116.08. So lower prices in the bond market coming back down, I see it's positive for stocks. That just, it's not that free for all flight to safety going on. So 116.08, attractor on the downside are trading in that low volume area right now. And but if they start trading up above the that 117.14 to 15, that's a couple of levels higher, I would look for a retracement trade back to the to some higher prices here. So looking for shorts against the 17.08 and the 13.14s. Above that, I'll take in off the short bias. Looking for maybe moves to the upside. So we'll see. So the bond market looks like it's settling in this range here. So definitely not at the towards the upper area. So that's a little bit of a positive sign. Market is still super volatile though. Nasdaq also pretty darn volatile. They have been it's so much range. I probably had to do another it aggregated further to get a better picture, but I haven't kind of dragged my feet on that. So you can see it's kind of finding a range here. The lower end of the range is at 2200. They haven't quite been, they've been down here yesterday. Oh no, not yesterday, but day before, almost probing that low at the 20,000s, then retrace back up again. Again, weakness in the overnight. We are down here towards the lower end of this range already. So we'll see if that's going to hold up or not, or if they are going to try to push this lower. So starting off the same way in the Nasdaq, they're going to sell strength at this point against the 360s and the 440s for rotations back down. If they trade above 440s, I'm taking off that short bias and just going back range bound. So there's a pretty wide range. You'll find resistance here at the 700 to 720s. That's actually turned into a pretty narrow range, to be honest with you. So that was not, that's pretty good. So that kind of clarifies that you have a pretty good edge here around the 2700s. And above that, you have an area congestion you had to get through. So all the way from 2700 or 20 to the 21,000. So it's almost a 300-point range where they've been down probing on the way down. And they've been defending that area forever. And now they finally took it out. Now it's resistance on the way back up again. So we'll see. So far, the reverse retest has not yielded more than a failure. And now we are back down here to that lower end of the range. If they take out that low, the 20,000s, we could be in some interesting. We could be in an interesting spot for sure. Then we can make this bigger. We can head all the way down here to start testing these areas, the 19.6s and so on and so forth. That would be ugly. We find support at the 19,800s after that. So 20,000, then 19,800. But when they start heading back down, it's going to get gnarly. So at that point, I think you'll probably see even more sell programs kicking in. But and they're repricing stuff, so we're repricing assets. Now I don't necessarily feel like it feels very much algo driven and fear driven than anything else. It's all about the tariffs and what they're going to do and not do. And personally, I think it's well overdone. Well overdone. Things are going to settle in just fine. It's just the changes and the shake up to the status quo. It's the market is reacting to. So there we have it. So yeah, they just took a leg lower here, down into that lower edge at 300. So we'll see how far they're going to push this before we see any relief. So weak start of the day for sure. And then we got that news coming up in a few minutes. The jobless claims numbers. So finally, oil and gold. In a day like this on a Nasdaq, I mean, a couple of days now, I've been tried a few trades, and I just it's just too freaking volatile. When you're right on the trade, you just get shaken out because it rotates back and forth, 100 ticks in a heartbeat. And when you're wrong, you had to make the trade bigger, so you just lose more money. So it is one of these things you wish. But it's if you get on a trade and you manage to stick in it, it could certainly pay off. So that's why I keep doing it. All right, gold. Kind of holding in that range. I would just start range bound on gold at this point. Looking to fade the edges back to the mean. Let me see if I find my capital flow on gold. Where are you? There you are. All right, so we are just trading in this range right now. Upper end to 29.60 to 70. Lower edge is going to be down here at the 28.70s. So almost a 100-point range here we are trading in. And then, of course, we have a little bit of a tail heading back down to that 28.40 support area. So I would just start off range bound on gold at this point, fade the edges, and then see stick with the 3 levels up and 3 levels down. So 3 levels down, looking to buy against 29.05s, 2900s, down to the 28.95s. I would say below the 29.05s, we may have a shot at actually start pushing a little bit lower. But so these two support areas are pretty important, the 29.05s and the 28.900s. Below that one level outside the obvious would be 28.90s. And then on the way up, looking for short setups against the 29.17s, 29.22s, 29.35s for rotations back down again. And the one level outside would be 29.40s. So about 29.40s, I think we have a shot at trading up towards the upper end of the range. So that's the range we're trading in, and I would just stick in that range, fade those edges back to the mean. Until we see a reason for them, they'll break out of that range and with a little bit of conviction. So that's gold, range bound trading on that guy. Capital flow is still pointed higher, so it's I would be, if anything, favored alongside, but at this point, they built enough value to just focus on range bound trading on gold. And then finally, oil. Nice probe to the downside yesterday. Back up here, reverse retesting 66.80s. And I'm thinking that we have a really good shot at then starting to taking this lower. So this is how it starts, right? So this is the taking out the lower end of the range, and this is kind of what I was talking about. Structure is to the downside. It's going to keep going lower, and everything they're doing is about getting oil prices or energy prices lower. So yeah, it's going to come down. So this little pop here was all about the last hurrah of Biden trying to mess with it. And now they are just putting different policies in place. And down we go. So as I think it was Mihail mentioned, hopefully the diesel prices are going to be way down by the time the tuna shows up. And then I'm out of here. Anyway, we will see. So anyway, trade oil from the short side. Look to sell strength. 66.80s, 67.20s up to the 67.50s for rotations back down. And not going to be very aggressive buying support here. There could be buying opportunity, but I'm not going to be very aggressive about it. I think the better ones comes at the 65.80s against that the mean from yesterday, and also the 65.20s. That's, I think, are the better ones. All right, so that's oil to get started. So trade oil from the short side. If it starts trading above the 67.50s, take off that short bias and go back range bound. And on gold, just trade it range bound. All right, so back to the ES. And yeah, weakness, they're pushing it lower. So we'll see if they can, support's going to hold today, or if we get one of those days where they shake out the investing community, and we'll sit here with their hearts in our, like, all right, yeah, we'll sit here shaking, right, watching our and the IRAs go to shit. Anyway, enough. So we'll wrap it here, guys. So we got news in about 4 minutes. I'm gonna wrap it here, and good trading, and I will see you guys back at 11:30 for the next update. And as I said, I'm gonna probably sit on the sidelines until I see really good trade opportunities or the volatility slow down. I tried a few trades in the last few days, and it's just it's too volatile, and the times I made my trades a little bit bigger, then it's just kind of painful. So anyway, we'll leave it there. So good trading, guys, and I will see you back at 1:30 or 11:30 for the next update later.